Oh, my goodness. I live out in the middle of the cornfield, and I know now why I do. Again, we're grateful for everybody that's come, and it's a great honor to have Dr. Hovind with us. Dr. Hovind, I don't know if you know this or not, there's a group of Russians over here, Russian-American, American Russians. Stand up of you all. So internationally, you're touching them today. In fact, our buddy Peter came down to Pensacola for the second trial, so he's been actively involved with it as well. What's that name? Sisters went too. So the Russians showed up on them. Maybe the Russians aren't our enemies after all, huh? I figure out how that one goes. So we're going to go for a couple hours here, then we'll take another hour break. And I should have said this sooner. Dr. Hovind will be speaking here tomorrow morning. At 10 o'clock, they will do like a combined adult Bible study. That might be an interesting thing to come to. And then at 11 o'clock, they'll have their service, and he'll be speaking in the service at 11 o'clock as well. And then 6 o'clock tomorrow night, he's going to be over in the Coshocton area of Warsaw, Ohio, if you know anybody over that way. He's going to speak over there tomorrow night. We're excited about this. On Tuesday morning, we were lucky enough to sneak him into Thomas Worthington High School, where he's going to speak to about 150 seniors at Thomas Worthington High School, and I imagine he's going to turn that place upside down. So, I just from a guy who does a lot of traveling, it probably seems to everybody to be glamorous, but for he and Theodore to be on the road the way they are, let me tell you, it really wears you out. And he's going to be here for a few days, and he's going to go to Scranton, Pennsylvania next weekend. When I first spoke to him about 5 or 6 weeks ago, he said, I'm going to try to keep the traveling down a little bit, and now all I have to do is go to his website, and you can see that people all across America, again, would love to have him come. In fact, we're going to go together to the museum down in the Creation Museum in Kentucky. We're going to go there Monday morning. He's never been there, so give him some ideas of what he's going to do with his own museum when he gets it set back up. So, without any further ado, come up and entertain us and inform us here. I don't know, have you guys noticed this? This has been so fascinating to me. He has a heart to go after those young kids, right? We get the truth into those young kids. They'll never lose it. Train up a child in the way he should go. Look back over my own life and the mistakes I made with my own children, assuming the public schools were teaching them the right things. And we're shocked to find out now that 70% of church kids, when they go to college, 70% of them leave the faith. 70% are leaving. And because they've left the faith, because we're not able to defend the very stuff he's trying to teach us how to defend. So, again, Dr. Hovind, God bless you, and thanks for being here.
Just testing, giving him a hard time up there. Okay, all right. Praise God. How many were here for this morning's session? How many were not here this morning? How many do not understand the question so far? And Privet, как дела? Хорошо, слава Богу. Okay, glad you came today. Let's see. This is going to cover what they asked me to cover. Let me double check here, make sure you want this. Boy, that's what they want. Yep. The dangers of this evolution theory. It's not just a dumb idea. It's an extremely dangerous philosophy that has led to all kinds of problems in the world. Anyway, glad you're here. My name's Ken Hovind, has been a long time. Taught high school science 15 years, and then 1989 began a ministry called Creation Science Evangelism, speaking out on creation versus evolution. And I take the position without apology that the Bible is the infallible, inspired, inerrant word of the living God. Believe it from cover to cover. And obviously this is part 5, and we're skipping a whole lot of what's in my seminar in the blue series of tapes back there, 18 hours long, on all kinds of topics, the age of the earth, dinosaurs, where they fit in, carbon dating, and we'll have Q&A time here in just a little bit. But any questions are fair game. Our new website is 2peter3.com. If you want to get us there. If you go to drdino.com, that links over to my son's website for now, for another few weeks, and it'll come to ours. His site is creationtoday.org. Okay. There. What on earth is happening? Most people are a little nervous about world events and what's going on. If you haven't noticed, the world is falling apart. Morally, economically, socially, it's falling apart. Why is this evolution theory so dangerous, and what should we do about it? All right, that's just a couple thoughts. What on earth is happening here? In part one, we talk about the Big Bang Theory and the age of the Earth. I did not get time to cover all that today, but we show how that the Earth cannot possibly be billions of years old. Part two, we explain why they lived to be 900 years old. Why did the people before the flood live to be 900? Something was different back then. And part three, we talk about where dinosaurs fit in. Part four is one of my favorite ones. It's 2.5 hours long, showing 50-some lies in the textbooks that are used to push the evolution theory. But in this one, part five, we're going to talk about how dangerous this philosophy of evolution is. And the last 150 years, we show some of the deadly effects of the evolution teaching. So here's some of the things we covered back in part four, which we did not get to cover today, but you can get on videotape out there. Okay, James Hutton, back in 1795, wrote a book called Theory of the Earth. In that book, he said the Earth is much older than people think. Now, at that time, most people thought, hey, you add up the dates in the Bible, and it comes to 6,000 years old, which is what it comes to. So most people, even though they weren't all Christians back in the late 1700s, they were strongly influenced by Christianity and the Bible, and they thought, hey, the Earth is about 6,000 years old. James Hutton said, the Earth is much older than that. And people began to doubt the first couple verses of Genesis. His book had a profound influence on many, oh, wrong button, there we go. In 1776, we had the American Revolution going on, you know, freedom from dictatorship. We had the Spanish Revolution, the French Revolution, the Polish Revolution, the Italian, the German. This was a time of many revolutions around the world. Get rid of monarchy and establish democracy or some other form of government, okay? So many people were very concerned that the Bible supported monarchy, which it does not. But they thought the Bible was an obstacle to their political objectives. And so the Bible became kind of fair game in the early 1800s. It's not working there, brother. There we go, okay. Yeah. Does it have to be line of sight? Oh, that's where it's going to. Okay, well, I'm trying. All right. So James Hutton developed an idea called uniformitarianism. Big word. What it means is the way things are happening today is the way they've always been happening. Long, slow, gradual processes. Not true, by the way. It doesn't take into consideration a flood, what that would do to the world. But James Hutton had a strong influence on a guy named Charles Lyell. Charles Lyell was a lawyer from Scotland. Now, somebody figured out the other day that if all the lawyers in the world were laid end to end around the equator, it would be a very good thing. Charles Lyell hated the Bible. Charles Lyell wrote 3 books. There's his first one, Principles of Geology, 1830. Charles Lyell, in these books, invented what today is called the geologic column. Now, kids, when you go to school, probably 8th grade or 9th grade, you're going to have some kind of earth science class, and they're going to tell you each of the layers of rock is a different age. Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, Archaeozoic, and maybe you saw the movie Jurassic Park, named after the Jurassic layer. The entire geologic column was invented in 1830 by Charles Lyell. And Taylor said, I myself have little doubt that in England it was the long-age uniformitarian geology and the theory of evolution that changed us from a Christian to a pagan nation. England used to be a Christian nation, sending out missionaries all over the place. What happened to England? What's happening to America? Well, it started with this crazy geologic column in 1830, teaching that each layer of rock is a different age. By the way, there's only one place in the world where you will ever find the geologic column. That's in the textbook. It does not exist. It's true the Earth has layers of rock. That's not a question, okay? Go to Grand Canyon, you can see all kinds of layers. The question is, how did they get there? All over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, running through all these layers. Now think about it. If those layers are different ages by millions of years, doesn't that create a little problem with a petrified tree connecting all of them? How long does a dead tree stand up in Ohio before it falls over? 5, 10 years max, you know? Not millions of years, that's for sure. And they sure don't grow through the solid rock. Truth is, all those layers formed in one big flood in the days of Noah. You can get a jar of dirt and gravel and sand and rocks and mud and leaves and put water in there and shake it up, set it down and watch it. It'll settle into layers as you watch. It does not take millions of years. The flood formed all those layers. But that book that Charlie Lyell wrote was taken with on a trip by Charles Darwin. Darwin was going to sail around the world and collect bugs for somebody back in England. And while he's sailing around the world, he brought some books to read. He brought Principles of Geology. That book changed his life forever. Charles Darwin, his philosophy was greatly influenced by Charles Lyell, who said the layers are different ages. And he was influenced by a guy named Thomas Malthus. Malthus taught there are more babies born than can possibly survive, so it's really best if the weakest die off. Best for society. Darwin was influenced by those two guys. James Hutton wrote his book and said the earth is much older than 6,000 years. Then along came Charlie Lyell and wrote his book, and he said there's no flood. All of this is explained by long, slow, gradual processes. See, Hutton made people doubt the creation. Lyell made them doubt the flood. Then along came Charlie Darwin, 1859, and his book made people doubt the Creator himself. That's the sequence that happened. And by 1860 or so, the world was falling apart morally because they'd lost their bearings. Lyell said the earth was more than 6,000 years old. His book on geology made people doubt the flood, and Darwin's book made people doubt the Creator. And for the next 50 years, this godless thinking of humanism, communism, racism, socialism, Nazism, all grew out of this one basic idea: there's no God. We're God. We make the rules. Fred Hoyle said, I'm haunted by a conviction that the nihilistic philosophy, which so-called educated opinion chose to adopt following the publication of Origin of Species, committed mankind to a course of automatic self-destruction. A doomsday was then set ticking. And folks, we're about to see that come to pass here, I think, pretty soon. They're falling apart. Darwin said, often a cold shudder has run through me as I have asked myself whether I've devoted myself to a fantasy. Yes, Charlie, you devoted your whole life to a fantasy. Evolution is a fantasy. It doesn't happen. There are 4 great questions and 2 ways to answer them. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? 2 different ways to answer them. Incredible design. Somebody must have designed it. That's the creation worldview. And the evolution worldview that says there is no designer. The world made itself. Now, the Bible starts off pretty simply. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Well, God is claiming he did it. And is that true? The evolutionist says, no, there's no God. Man is God. And we got here by a long process called evolution from a big bang. These two worldviews are at war with each other. Somebody is wrong. And I enjoy showing them who they are. Anyway, the humanists, that would be guys like, all kinds of our political leaders, regard the universe as self-existing and not created. Humanism and evolution is not just a dumb idea. It's a dangerous philosophy for many reasons. It's based on lies, okay? This guy says, evolution is a fact, not theory. Birds arose from non-birds, and humans from non-humans. No person who pretends to any understanding of the natural world can deny these facts. Sounds like he's open-minded, huh? That's not science, that's a mantra. Birds came from dinosaurs? Well, you can believe that if you want. But the textbooks give all kinds of evidences for evolution, which I cover on video 4. And if you kids go to public school, or you have a cousin or nephew or grandson or anybody you know that goes to a public school, you need to get on my video number 4, Lies in the Textbooks, and maybe unbrainwash them. This book has evidence for evolution. We have evidence from fossils. I get this all the time. I do a radio program on YouTube channel, Kent Hovind Official. Always skeptics, scoffers, atheists writing in, say, we've got proof for evolution. Fossils prove evolution. I say, whoa, 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 slow down. A fossil is a bone you find in the dirt. When you find some bones in the dirt, you should notice right away, it does not talk. Secondly, it does not have a date stamped on it. Okay? And when you find a bone in the dirt, all you really know is it died. You could not prove it had any children, could you? You sure couldn't prove it had different children. And why should we think a bone in the dirt can do something no animal today can do, which is produce something other than its kind? Amen. Today, dogs produce dogs, cats produce cats, horses produce horses. There are no exceptions that I'm aware of. Anybody ever seen one? Now, they can imagine it if they want, and they do. They have a vivid imagination. But it's not science. Science is things we observe, study, test, demonstrate. So no fossil is evidence for evolution. Quit lying to the kids and say you have evidence of evolution from fossils. No, you don't. There are a bunch of bones in the dirt. Now, we put our interpretation on them, but they're not talking and telling us what happened. The fact that we find all these fossils in the dirt indicates there was a big flood. When they were climbing Mount Everest, 1953, Edmund Hillary got up near the top of Mount Everest, tallest mountain in the world, and began finding seashells, clams, petrified clams in the closed position. Petrified, closed clams. Now, kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. Clams do not climb mountains very well. Okay? And when a clam dies, it opens. You can come to Pensacola, where I live, and walk along the beach and get a million seashells, but you hardly ever get a matched pair. And they're certainly not going to be closed when they're dead. As soon as they die, they open and something eats them. Okay? Closed clams, petrified clams in the closed position indicate they died rapidly and were buried immediately, and they couldn't even open. They woke up dead and they couldn't even open. And the fact that they're on top of Mount Everest ought to create a little problem for somebody somewhere. Now, I don't think the flood was over Mount Everest. I think Mount Everest was under the flood. Psalm 104 says at the end of the flood, the mountains lifted up and the water rushed away. If you had a section of, if this room was 3 feet deep in water, might be in a minute here. If this, it'll dry on the carpet better than on the wood here. There we go. If this room was 3 feet deep in water, and we all picked up that end of the building, the water would rush down over here, right? Well, if the earth is all busted up into plates, like the Bible teaches the fountains of the deep broke open, I think the cracks all over the earth's crust, the fault lines, you got the Hayward Fault, the New Madrid Fault, the San Andreas Fault, none of them are my fault, but they're all over the place, okay? So these cracks in the earth is probably where the fountains of the deep broke open and the water gushed out. We covered that on video number 6. What happened? Where did the flood water come from? Where did it go? That's an interesting story. But the earth's crust to this day is still busted up into plates like an eggshell. And those plates are still moving, some of them, and we have earthquakes when they move. No question, nobody argues about that. But when did it happen? Well, I think it started with the flood in the days of Noah. The fountains of the deep broke open, the earth is covered with water, Noah's floating around in the ark, and then plates of earth as big as Texas would tip a little bit. One place comes up a few miles, the other place goes down a few miles, the water runs off. As the water's running off, it carves features like Grand Canyon in minutes. I was in a debate one time, and this atheist said, Hovind, you're so stupid. Don't you know it took millions of years to form Grand Canyon? I said, well, sir, whether I'm stupid or not is a totally different subject, but let me explain something to you. Grand Canyon starts cutting the rock at about Page, Arizona. Page, Arizona is less than 3,000 feet above sea level. So you got Page, Arizona, 2,800 feet above sea level. The river flows downhill to Lost Wages, Nevada, where it's 1,800 feet above sea level. So you go from 2,800 to 1,800. It loses 1,000 feet over 277 miles, okay? In between Page, Arizona, and Lost Wages is a big bump called the Kaibab Plateau that is 8,000 feet above sea level. I said, sir, rivers don't flow uphill in Florida or Arizona or any place. So how could you get a canyon cut through this bump a mile deep with a river starting the canyon and it's less than 3,000 feet elevation? How did it get over the 8,000 foot mark? The truth is, if you filled up Grand Canyon, which would take a lot of dirt, by the way, if you filled up Grand Canyon, a huge lake would fill up covering half of Colorado and Nevada. I think after the flood, there was a giant lake covering half of those states. It got too deep, started going over the top, and carved that groove out as the lake drained, probably in weeks, not millions of years. Now today, the river flows downhill through the canyon. All rivers flow downhill. But that river did not make that canyon. That was the dam for a post-flood lake, and the dam got breached, and it washed out the spillway in days or weeks, not millions of years. So they do not have evidence for evolution from fossils. They don't have evidence for evolution from structure. Kids are going to lie to you. They're going to tell you, you've got 2 bones in your wrist, the radius and the ulna. That's true. The cat has 2 bones in his forearm, radius and ulna. So does the frog. Wow, that proves we're related. No, that proves a common designer. Maybe the same guy designed them all. Doesn't prove a common ancestor. Did you know Fords have 4 wheels? Chevys have 4 wheels. And Hondas have 4 wheels. That proves they all evolved from a skateboard. Duh. You know, it's a good design that works, okay? And having 2 bones in the wrist is an amazing design. You can turn it all sorts of ways. If you could make a machine that would do what your arm does, you'd be a multi-zillionaire. It's amazing design. Evidence from structure is not true. They say we have evidence from development. Now this one bothers me because this has been proven wrong since 1874. They say the baby growing inside the mother has gill slits. Those are not gill slits. They're little folds of skin that later develop into glands in the throat and bones in the ear. They have nothing to do with breathing. I've seen fat folks got 5 or 6 chins. They can't breathe through any of them, okay? It's just nothing to do with it. But that's how they justify abortion. They say it's not a human yet. It's just a fish. Watch my video 4. Very politically incorrect on that one. Anyway, they'll say we've got evidence for evolution, and they have 0 evidence for anything above variation within the kind. So we covered all kinds of things in my 18-hour seminar. I won't take time to cover all that again, but there's lots of topics we covered in there. Probably too many. So all those 54 things we covered. Anyway, in the 1800s up to 1925, creation was taught right from the Bible in the public schools. No problem at all. Some evolution was taught if the teacher wanted, but they weren't required to teach it. 1925, they had the Scopes monkey trial in Dayton, Tennessee. Now, in that trial, some states had passed laws banning evolution. That trial was to lift the ban, to say, we don't think you should be allowed to ban evolution teaching, okay? The Scopes trial was not about teaching creation. They were already teaching creation. It was to lift the ban on teaching evolution. They lost the trial. ACLU, American Communist Lawyers Union, lost. And the ban on teaching evolution remained until 1968. But they did the media blitz on that and said, we got to turn this around and get the victory in the media. So they made it look like the Christians were the stupid ones and the evolutionists were the smart ones with that movie, Inherit the Wind, which is nothing like the truth. There's a good book on Inherit the Wind if you want to see the truth about that. So in 1968, the last law banning evolution was overturned here in America. There has never been a law against teaching creation in public schools, never. Still is not today. There have been several states that have tried to require creation to be taught. The courts have always struck those down. They didn't say you couldn't teach it. They said it can't be mandatory. If you passed a law that said teachers are required to breathe, they would strike it down. You're not required to breathe. You probably ought to, you know, but you don't have to if you don't want to, okay? So there's no law banning creation. Louisiana passed a law requiring teachers to teach creation if they taught evolution, you know, balanced treatment. Court struck that down. They said, in the finding, Supreme Court said no statute exists in any state to bar instruction in creation science. It could be taught before, it can be taught now. You want to teach creation? Go for it. Supreme Court ruling did not outlaw the teaching of creation. Creation science can still be brought into the classroom if and when teachers and administrators feel it's appropriate. So praise God, I'll be going to a public school this week. I used to speak at a lot of public schools. There's no problem with that. When I was in Russia, they had me go speak at public schools, public universities. Please come in, teach on creation. Please do. They got more freedom there than we got here. I was speaking at the university in Chernovtsi. What's the name of the university? A big university in Chernovtsi, Ukraine. I don't remember the name of it now. But anyway, there were like 30-some professors in there. I'm talking through a translator about creation and the dinosaurs and the Christian view, and this one professor's crying. I asked the translator, I said, what's he crying about? She said, he's happy. He's never heard the creation story. He didn't know there was one. Didn't know there even was a creation alternative to evolution. He said, I want you to keep going. I did for 2 hours. Supreme Court decision only said you cannot require creation be taught. That's all. That's all they've ever ruled. So if somebody says you can't teach the Bible in schools, you can't teach creation in schools, they're either lying or stupid, because you can, okay, teach creation and the Bible in schools. Now, Jeannie Scott, I debated her 30-minute radio program. They said, would you like to debate Jeannie Scott? I said, we'd be honored. 30-minute program, she spoke for 27 minutes. I got 3. Okay, Jeannie, next time I get half the time, okay? But they run the American National Center for Science Education in Berkeley, California. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff on this. Video number 5. Teachers are perfectly fine for you to teach creation in public schools if you want to, and not a problem with it. But you cannot make it mandatory or required. Let's see, let me get up past all this stuff. Creation science. There's been plenty of court cases. They've always ruled it is okay to teach creation if it's not mandatory. California's passed laws, and so separation of church and state. They talk about that separation of church and state. There's no such phrase in the Constitution. A separation of church and state was in a letter Thomas Jefferson wrote. He made up that phrase in a letter, nothing in the Constitution about that. The wall of First Amendment was a wall of separation between church and state, Thomas Jefferson said. That wall is a one-dimensional wall. It keeps the government away from running the church, but it makes sure the Christian principles will always be in government. One-way wall. There's a good article about that from ICR.org, Institute for Creation Research, if you want more on that. Now, if you can get on the textbook selection committee in your town, I recommend you do that. Put your name out there, just be quiet about what you believe, and say, I'd like to be on the textbook selection committee. Oh, okay. They're hard to find folks. They will send you 6 or 8 or 10 textbooks saying, please buy our book. All the different publishers do that. And you look them over and you give your vote. I think we should buy this one. Step 1 would be to buy the least poisonous of the books. Now, back in '91, this survey was done, and they said probably this book by Merrill, Science, only 2.9% of the book discusses evolution, whereas some have 13 or 15%. So if I was on the committee, I would select the least poisonous, then I would write to the others and tell them why we did not pick theirs. I would write to the one we did pick and say, we got yours only because it's the least poisonous, and if we find a better one next year, we're getting it. And then I would say, even that 2.9% contains quite a few lies. We need to put a disclaimer in the front saying the information on these following pages is not correct. And if you send me the book you're choosing, I'll pick out the pages and write the disclaimer for you. So there's, we could talk forever on the textbooks. Okay. Hitler said, let me control the textbooks and I'll control the state. What do you think he meant by that? What are your kids going to be taught Monday morning in this town, schools in this town? They're going to be taught they're an animal? And who picks these books anyway? As a textbook selection committee, state legislature adopts standards, typically. Then, publishers create books to try to sell it. All they want to do is sell the book, okay? They're in the business to make money. Now, 22 states have a state textbook selection committee. This may have changed since I went to prison for the dumbest law in the world, so you can do some research on that. But there are some things you can do to help fix it. These are states that at the time of this survey back in 2002, these are states that the atheists thought in green. They said the green states are doing a good job of teaching evolution. The red states are doing a lousy job of teaching evolution. Ohio, you got a lousy rating for teaching evolution. Go Ohio. Yay. Keep it up, okay. And there is lots of stuff. This Ben Wagner, I haven't talked to Ben in 10 years, but I think he can still get public school textbooks to get creation into public schools. Anyway, we got a mountain of stuff on that. Steps to fix the problem. Let me get up to some of the dangers of evolution. How to fix the problem. Different statutes. Let's see. Hang on. That's why my seminar is 18 hours long. I talk as fast as I can go. Okay. When they find my skeleton, they're going to think I was a woman because the jaw is going to be all worn out, you know. The preacher went to visit this little boy. His dad died. He said, well, son, did your dad have any final words? He said, no, Mom was with him right up to the end. Let's see. I'm sorry. I got way too much stuff in here. Why is the theory of evolution dangerous? There we go. Evolution is the root philosophy for all kinds of other things. Humanism, Marxism, Nazism, communism, socialism. It all comes off of this crazy theory of evolution, that man is God. Humanism is the idea that man is God. We run the universe. The Bible says they did not like to retain God in their knowledge. And there are people today that don't want to retain God in their knowledge. Rafton said, do humanists believe in a supreme being? Emphatically, yes. That supreme being is man. Humanists have no knowledge of any being more supreme. The turning point in history will be the moment man becomes aware that the only God of man is man himself. This is the way they think. I'm God. I'm God. I'm God. I'm God. I'm God. Hey, Gabriel, come and listen to this. Ha, ha, ha. I'm sure God thinks it's hilarious that there are people down here that think they're God. You're God, huh? Okay, let's see. Walk on water. All right. I will not accept the creation philosophy because I do not want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. They would rather believe the impossible, that we came from a rock. We no longer feel ourselves to be guests in someone else's home, i.e. God's world, and therefore are obligated to make our behavior conform to a set of pre-existing cosmic rules, like, 10 Commandments. It is our creation now. We make the rules. We establish parameters of reality. We create the world. And because we do, we no longer feel beholden to outside forces. We no longer have to justify our behavior. This is why they like humanism. Get rid of God's rules. We are responsible to nothing outside ourselves, and so we are the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. That's humanism. And we cover a lot on that on video number 5, okay? If evolution is true, the questions are simple. Who owns the rule? Who owns the world? Who makes the rules? How do we decide right and wrong? If man is God, and that's what evolution means, then there's no standard. There's no way to tell right from wrong. Whatever you feel like doing, just do it. There are no standards, no rules. During the Civil War, one man decided he did not want to get involved. So he put on a Yankee coat and rebel pants. He said, I'm staying out of this. After the war, he was found dead. His Yankee coat full of rebel bullet holes and his rebel pants full of Yankee bullet holes. So, folks, there's a war going on. You might as well get on one side or the other, okay? Just get on one side. We are in the middle of the greatest battle ever. This is Satan versus God. Henry Morris had a great book, The Long War Against God. I think it's still in print. So, Christians already have an incredible advantage in this war. We have a book that tells us how it's going to turn out. Now, I already read the last chapter. We win. So, it's going to be fine. On my college classes I taught, where I go through my seminar, go down deep, stay down long, class 103 has a lot more on that. Let's see. The earth is the Lord's. Let's see. Let's get up here now. Come on. In Ezekiel 28, it tells us Lucifer was perfect in his ways from the day that thou wast created till iniquity was found in thee. Thy heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, which didst weaken the nations? Lucifer is causing this problem. 5 times in the book of Isaiah, he said, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne. I will. He wants to be God. I will be like the Most High. And the job's not available, so he's kind of upset about that. And God said, you're going to be God? No, Lucifer, you're going to be cast down to the hell, to the sides of the pit. And they that see thee shall look narrowly on thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble and did shake kingdoms? This is the man that did that? That made the world a wilderness? I think Judgment Day, when we see Lucifer bound and cast into the pit, we're all going to say, this is it? That's the guy that did all this trouble? It's kind of like Wizard of Oz. You know, you got the big smoke cloud and the big face, and I'm the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. You pull back the curtain, the little man back there pulling levers. You know? That's it. You are what? What is this? You know, the Wizard of Oz. Love that story. The great and powerful Wizard of Oz. While Satan and his followers are making their plans to rule the world like Pinky and the Brain, God is laughing at them. Psalm chapter 2 is a great tranquilizer if you get nervous. Why do the heathen rage? The people imagine a vain thing. The kings of the earth set themselves. The rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. God's laughing at their New World Order plans. But it started in the Garden of Eden when Satan tried to trick Eve. He lied to Eve and told her she could be like God, and you can read that in Genesis chapter 3. His plans have always been the same. He wants you to doubt God's word. He wants to deny God's word, and then he wants to deify mankind. You get to be God. Oh, okay. Ye shall be as gods. And Satan is using this evolution lie to lead millions to hell, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion. Okay? Satan said, the devil even tried it with Jesus in Matthew 4. He took him up on the mountain and said, all these kingdoms of the world and the glory of them will I give thee if you fall down and worship me. Same lie. He's done it for years and years. Aleister Crowley said, the year 2000 would mark the end of the superstition of Christianity and the beginning of the golden age when those possessing the will to dominate and conquer would ascend to godhood. Well, Aleister, I think, is dead now. Amen. And knows better. I think God explained it to him. Amen. Satan wants you to believe you can evolve into a God. And this philosophy is a dangerous one, which I'm supposed to be talking about here. I'll get up there in a minute. There are all kinds of evil philosophies that come from this teaching of evolution. Besides humanism, we also have racism. Why would anybody think one species is superior to another, or one color is superior to another? Why would they think that? Some reason, if there is no God, and if man evolved from dark-skinned apes, then the colored man must be less evolved than others. Evolution is the foundation for racism. Now, racism has always existed. And I don't understand where they get that word. As far as I can figure out, there's only one race called the human race. Amen. Now, there are different skin colors, okay, but I've never met a black man. I've met all shades of brown, never met a black man. That's black. I've never met a white man. I'm not white. Some kind of pink, I guess. I don't know. We're all of one blood, folks, all of one blood. So I think we should quit using this term racism. But Darwin's book came out in 1859 at the height of racism. And most people don't know the whole title to his book. They usually show this on the cover. Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not the whole title. Come on now, let's be honest. During Darwin's day, there were people who thought there were superior races. There are still people today who think that, okay? These are not different races. These are all monkeys, okay? They're different species, but it's the same kind of animal. It's a monkey. Here's the whole title to Darwin's book. The evolution, Darwin published his finding in a book called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. Well, they're getting closer, but they still didn't give the whole title. Here's the whole title to the book. The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Whoa, 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 favored races? Charlie, what are you talking about here? You think one skin color is superior to another? He sure did think that. Charlie thought natives, dark-skinned natives, were just advanced animals. Darwin said in his book, The Descent of Man, at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. Well, who are they? Darwin said, from war of nature, from famine and death, the most exalted object we're capable of conceiving, namely the production of higher animals, directly follows. Who are these higher animals? Well, in 1859 in America, black people were bought and sold like cows. That's just the way it was. It's wrong, it's evil, it's wicked, but it happened. Henry Fairfield Osborn, the museum at Harvard University named after him, I believe, he said the standard of intelligence of the average adult Negro is similar to that of the 11-year-old youth of the species Homo sapien. Woo! Biological arguments for racism may have been common before 1850, but they increased by orders of magnitude following the acceptance of evolution theory. Thomas Huxley said, no rational man, cognizant of the facts, believes that the average Negro is the equal, still less the superior, of the white man. The black people of Australia, exactly the same race as the African Negro, cannot take in the gospel. Don't even go preach to them. They can't be saved. All attempts to bring them to a knowledge of the true God have utterly failed. Poor brutes in human shape, they must perish off the face of the earth like brute beasts. That was Kingsley, the Anglican priest that promoted Darwin in the schools. And we got a whole lot on racism on my video number 5, okay? The Mormon apostle said, if there's one drop of Negro blood in my children, as I've told you, as I've read to you, they receive the curse. This is Mormon President Brigham Young. Shall I tell you the law of God in regard to the African race? If the white man who belongs to the chosen seed mixes his blood with the seed of Cain, the penalty under the law of God is death on the spot. This will always be so. I didn't write it. This is what they taught. You might want to read about the secret history of the Mormon church. I had 2 Mormons when I first moved to Pensacola come riding their bikes up into my yard. They knocked on the door, said, Mr. Hovind, we'd like to talk to you about the Lord. I said, that would be great. Whose Lord would you like to talk about, yours or mine? They said, well, we worship the same Lord. I said, no, I don't think so, fellas. I said, does your God have a body like mine? They said, oh, yeah, human, physical body. I said, does your God live on the planet Kolob, K-O-L-O-B? They said, yeah, we believe he does. I said, does your God have thousands of wives? Oh, yeah, thousands. I said, does your God have normal relations with those wives to produce a spirit baby in heaven? And the human couple on earth only produces the physical body, but your God produces the spirit for that body. Is that what you believe? Yep. The human couple just produces the body. The God in heaven produces the spirit. And if the spirit baby in heaven is a good spirit baby, when it comes down to earth to get into that body during birth, it gets a white-skinned body if it's a good spirit baby. But if it's a bad spirit baby, it gets a black-skinned body. Is that what you guys believe? I said, well, you're not supposed to know all that, but yeah, that is what we believe, and it is, by the way. I said, now, fellas, listen, I've been married 42 years. I've taught biology and anatomy. I have 3 kids, 1 of each. I said, there are 2 babies born on earth every second, 24 hours a day. It never stops. Average of 2 a second are being born around the clock. And your God in heaven on Kolob, is supplying a spirit for each one at the same rate the couples on earth are supplying the body. 2 a second. When does he get time to answer your prayer? Or take a drink of water, or do anything, okay? Gee whiz. And they got on their bike and rode off. I never saw them again. I don't know how. Anyway, but I don't think you're going to understand the 1800s and racism in America until you tie evolution into it. Folks, it goes hand in glove. It's, we could talk for days on that, how they tried to prove the Aborigines were an inferior species. Video number 5, get more on that. They enslaved the Aborigines, racism in Australia. New South Wales missionary was the horrified witness to the slaughter by mounted police of a group of dozens of Aboriginal men, women, and children. 45 heads were boiled down and the best 10 skulls packed off for overseas. Shot them, killed them just to get their skull for a museum someplace to prove evolution. Smithsonian had 33,000 sets of human remains in their basement. There's a big eugenics movement in America. Charles Darwin's cousin was working hard with that. And again, that would take an hour to go over. But in the 1904 World's Fair, they held a display of pygmies on there to show how man has evolved as part of the evolution display. One of the guys named Ota Benga was taken away from his wife and children and put in a cage with chimpanzees, he's a pygmy, as a display of evolution. He went insane and hung himself. U.S. President Roosevelt was influenced by racism and evolution, strong believer in evolution, but he applied it to the Indians. He said the Indians are an inferior species. You ever wondered why during the westward push the Americans just simply slaughtered so many Indians? It was the evolution teaching. They thought they were inferior. Here's a biology textbook. They say, I wish very much, did I get the right one? Oh, hang on. I wish very much that the wrong people could be prevented entirely from breeding. When the evil nature of these people is sufficiently flagrant, this should be done. Theodore Roosevelt thought that the Indians should be prevented from breeding. Thought they should be wiped out. Got to kill them. They thought many immigrants from Europe, Scotland, Ireland, and the Orient are a threat to American society because they're inferior species. Anybody here have ancestors from, let's see, Europe, Scotland, Ireland, or the Orient? Just about everybody, okay. So I guess we're all inferior species. 1871, Congress passed a law that scrapped all treaties with the Indians, moved them off to the reservation system, still in use today. Cherokee Indians were forced off their land. 1/3 of them died along the way. It's called the Trail of Tears. You can read all about that if you like. Why did they do that? Well, it really, you have to go back and blame part of this on this dumb theory of evolution. Now, the Bible says, have we not all one Father? We all come from one blood, Acts 17. And you're not superior to anybody because of the color of your skin, okay? What a dumb theory. Charles Darwin said, a married man is a poor slave. I won't even comment on that, okay? But this is the next part, okay? Worse than a Negro. Darwin said the chief distinction in the intellectual powers of the two sexes is shown by man's attaining to a higher eminence in whatever he takes up than can woman. Whether reasoning, requiring deep reason, deep thought, reason, or imagination, or merely the use of the senses and hands, the average mental power of man must be above that of woman. Charlie never heard of the ERA movement, okay? Charlie said, man has superiority, ultimately becomes superior to woman, poetry, strength, voice, etc. That's the guy we promote in our schools. Darwin believed in inbreeding. He married his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. They had 10 children. Mary died shortly after birth. Anne died at age 10. Robert was born retarded and died at 19. Henrietta had a serious breakdown at age 15. 3 of his other 6 sons were so ill, Charles thought them as semi-invalids. Married his first cousin. Evolution is the foundation philosophy for all sorts of things, for communism. Where did we get this crazy idea of communism? Let's all live in a commune and everybody contribute. Everybody get everything you make to one pot and we'll divide it back out. Yeah, right. Has that ever worked? No. Never. The ACLU founder said communism is the goal. That's the purpose of the ACLU, to advance communism. Moses Mordecai Marx Levy, alias Karl Marx, at age 17 wrote a paper saying how much he loved the Lord. Then he went off to college, studied philosophy, and turned his back on God. 75% of kids that go from Christian homes to public schools lose their faith. Karl Marx said, my objective in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. He's the founder of this philosophy called communism, which has got, what, about a third of the world now? Karl Marx tried to dedicate his book to Charles Darwin. Das Kapital, dedicated to Charles Darwin from a sincere admirer, Karl Marx. There's a good book on that called Fourth Reich of the Rich, if you want to read a whole lot more on the foundation of communism. Communist rules of revolution in the Communist Manifesto are listed right here. One of them, number 10, is a free education system for all children, because they knew they could teach the kids anti-God stuff, teach them evolution. On abolish private property. The Bible's exactly the opposite on that. He said, we reject the idea of private property, the Audubon Society. And we could, again, you'll have to get my video 5 for more on that. There are 2 basic philosophies of government. Under evolution, laws come from man's opinion, and rights are granted by the government, and the government should be all-powerful provider. Oh, that's called a democracy. Always becomes totalitarian. Just so much. Under creation thinking, laws come from the Creator, and rights are unalienable, however you want to pronounce it, and government should be limited. That's a constitutional republic, which is what our founding fathers gave us, okay? Don't get me started on that one. Income tax or the leaving property rights, okay? Communism is the philosophy behind the money powers. Love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, love of money. They've done all kinds of movies to tell us what they're going to do. Wizard of Oz. Follow the yellow brick road. Well, that's the gold. They're trying to get to a place called Oz, O-Z, ounces, gold. Always the money. More on that in College Class 103. Okay, we need to take a break. But there's plenty of evidence that evolution philosophy is behind communism, socialism, Marxism, Nazism, and the drive for a new world order. One world government coming soon to a city near you if we're not careful. So what do we do about it? Well, we'll take questions and answers after the break, and I'll give you some of Hovind's ideas, what we can do to prepare. Let's see, right? Boy, there's so much stuff. Video number 5 is 2.5 hours long. I just can't get all that in here. Don't get me started on that either. I have not done this presentation number 5 in 10 years, and I see now why they locked me up. All I'm doing is telling the truth, okay? That's the last thing they want out there is the truth told. Let's see, Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I believe everybody should tell the truth. I'm going to have to go through and just hit some of the highlights, but my video series back there is on DVD. You're welcome to get it and copy it all you want. Just don't sell it and don't change it, please, okay? Yeah. We'll take a little more after the break here. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Lord, thank you for telling us how that you made us and how you want things run. Lord, we've sure messed up your beautiful creation. Lord, we got a problem. Our planet's fallen apart, our finances, the economy, the morals. And Lord, we got some people here that want to live for you and want to serve you, so we need you to show us, Lord, how to do it. Show us how to withstand in this evil generation. Please guide us now, Father. Help us to please you in everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, 10-minute break, and we'll come back. Kids, if you did not get the airplanes, get an airplane. I will launch some more, and if you find one, you can have it. Break time. Dismissed.
Okay, folks, if we could regather, please. Somebody rescue him from these children. Trying to get the cows back in the barn here, you know. Trying to get the cows back in the barn here if we can. Okay, friends, we're going to pick back up here. Again, for those of you who don't know, my name's Coach Dave Dobbin. I'm with Pass the Salt Ministries, and we're the ones with Minutemen United who've put this event together. We went down and tried to free Kent from jail down in Pensacola, Florida, back in February. And first time we found that he was able to be out and about and be free, we tried to get him here in Columbus. So we're honored to have him. We are going to pass around a basket. Most of you have already had the opportunity to make an offering for Kent, but if anybody didn't get the chance, we are going to pass around the basket. All the finances will go to the ministry, and just give you an opportunity to be able to give towards that. The plan is to go for about another 45 minutes here, take an hour break or so, and then finish up with a session after that. Have you all home in time for the Buckeyes, the real religion here in Columbus, Ohio, right? Oh, come, let's sing Ohio's praise and genuflect to Woody Hayes. Amen. Dr. Hovind doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what a real... I was going to take him down to Ohio Stadium to show him the largest church in all of America, right down there. But you got to be a Buckeye to appreciate that, right, folks? So we're going to go into hopefully a question and answer session here, and let's have at it. Brother Hovind, you're the man. You're back up.
Testing. Okay. Good. All right. I want to have question answer time here. If you can hit escape on my computer there and load up, or be ready to load up seminar, probably part 7. That's where most of my question answer stuff is. But we'll just wait and see what comes up on there. So under the far right-hand corner is a PowerPoint, the seminar slides, or what's it say? Way up in the top right-hand corner. You see that folder? Okay. All right. Any questions? I know we didn't get to cover a lot of the seminar stuff, but any questions so far? Some interest? Somebody? If not, we can keep going. I got 1,000 more things to cover. Yes, sir. You should see the stuff they call me on the internet. It'll blow your mind. I do have 4 doctor's degrees. Yeah, question, what should you call me? Dr. Hovind, Ken Hovind. I do have 4 doctor's degrees, but I can't afford the malpractice insurance. So Kent Hovind's fine, Brother Hovind, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just don't call me late for supper, you know. I'm easy to please. Okay, other questions? Yes, sir.
What in your opinion, if you had to pick the biggest hole in theistic
the biggest hole in theistic evolution. Theos means God. The theistic evolutionists say God used the evolution process to get us here. I point out, A, that's not what the Bible teaches. B, that's not the God of the Bible. C, that's a stupid God that doesn't know what he wants. He's practicing and, playing around and experimenting. It's not the God of the Bible at all. And a God like that would not be worth worshiping. Why? Plus, a God like that would be cruel and wasteful. See, according to evolution theory, one animal evolves a little better than the rest. Okay? What happens to the rest of them? Well, they have to die, or the new improved model is swamped back into the gene code. So there's no evidence for it at all anyway. And I tell them, why do we want to compromise a perfectly good Bible, which has never been proven wrong, with a dumb theory that's never been proven right? There is simply no evidence that any animal's ever produced a different kind of animal. None. I'm not compromising. So those are some reasons. Pick what's most important to you, or other questions. Yes, ma'am.
What do you see in recent events that evolution is still having negative effects on society?
What do I see as recent events having negative effects on society? I can barely hear you. A lot of my examples are what?
She said a lot of the examples that you used in the seminar of the negative effects of evolution were from decades ago. So her question is, what do you see going on currently that's evidence that's still happening?
Well, most of the stuff in my seminar is from a decade ago. I've been locked up for 9 years. What do I do? I don't think anything's changed as far as evidence used for evolution is still the same. They're still lying to the kids. As far as the evidence is supporting creation or a young earth, I think that's all legitimate and probably more. What do I see as changed? I was amazed at the things that have changed since I got out in 9 years. We have gone much further downhill toward the New World Order. I think we're going to see a time where you have to get a mark in your right hand or in your forehead to buy or sell. We're much closer to a cashless society. The infrastructure is being built all around us where all they have to do is simply say no more cash allowed if you don't have a credit card. And then the next step from all credit cards is an injectable chip. And that technology has been around for 25 years. They could do it. But it's not mandatory yet. But I see that coming very soon. But I'm not aware of any new evidence against creation or new evidence for evolution. If somebody knows some, let me know. Yes, sir?
How do we respond to events like what happened in Oregon, where Christians were systematically targeted and killed? So how do we respond to that?
What was systematically burned?
So the shooter in Oregon.
There is a good indication that many of the so-called school shootings are actually staged events where they have actors go in there who don't even go to that school. It's called a false flag. The purpose of that would be to get more government regulation, more gun control, basically. It's always been the dream of the New World Order folks to have gun control. And in my seminar 5, I didn't get time to cover it, I go through some of the historical things that happened. They banned guns. Within the next 10 years, they killed that group of people because they can't have guns, like the Armenian genocide in Armenia between Turkey and Russia. Hitler banned the Jews from having guns, in 1936, and then slaughtered them. So there's lots of, on video 5, I go through probably 10 different examples like that. So if that addresses the question or not, I guess. Okay, watch my seminar 5. There's a whole lot on there, which is probably why they put me in prison, seminar part 5. Okay. Yes, sir. He's got the mic. You got a question? Raise your hand so he can see you. That way they can get. You got one up here, brother, and one over there.
Yes. When you talk to some Christians and you tell them about the importance of Genesis, they and what it's causing youth, like 75% leave when they go to college. And one of the arguments I've gotten back is, oh, well, most of those return when they get older and have kids of their own.
There is a large percentage that return back to God as they get older. They start to realize the stupidity of what they were taught. We shouldn't have to lose them at all and get them back. It just, the peer pressure is pretty incredible. When kids go off to college, a lot of things change. They're away from their parents, often for the first time. They're with a group of other kids who oftentimes are heathen. And they're able to get by with stuff, and it's like, whoa, there's no offense, and many can't handle that. And it's sad. That may or may not go back to, did the parents adequately prepare them for that, I see many, though, that do come back in their, especially after college, they realize this is dumb, I was stupid, I fell for it. The whole hippie generation, many of those said, this is dumb, what are we doing? Come back. Okay, who had the question next? Right here, brother.
So society is crumbling, our school systems are crumbling with it, public school systems that is. Why do Christians continually then send their young impressionable children into the public school system and expect godly results, I guess?
They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah, and I have a couple friends who actually live north of here, and they actually homeschool their kids now, and they're younger, about 5 to 10, and they're just the most polite kids you ever see, and they're not around all those, I don't know, it's just, I feel young kids are just so impressionable, so you got to just raise them upright from the beginning, and then you can start sending them off kind of to face their battles.
Yeah, homeschool or Christian school is 1,000 times superior. It's not that the public school teachers are evil. My mother retired from public school. My brother that led me to the Lord taught 34 years public school and retired. There are many good godly teachers, but the system itself tends toward corruption, I think, and tends toward excluding God and humanism. And they have so many other things they're now required to teach that are just dumb. They don't get time to teach the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. I think if at all possible, homeschool or Christian school, your kids need to realize the seriousness of what they're learning and the importance, see a value for it. See, my dad was really good at teaching us boys things that we saw why we're going to need this. We're always building something. I knew why I needed to study trig because we'd built rafters and houses and roof lines and so I knew I needed that. I think if parents can put something into their kids, says, here's why you need this. Oh, okay. It really, really helps. I could go off on a lot of rabbit trails from that one, but let's quit. Okay, other questions?
Why is it stated in the Bible that the Antichrist's number is 666?
I do not know why it says that. There are 4 or 5 different theories about that, and let me get some stuff I have on that. Let's see. Mark of the Beast. This is my commonly asked questions. My seminar part 7, Q&A, is 5 hours long. So it really would help if you ask the questions in the same order that I have the answers. Okay. Mark of the Beast, where is that on there? Let's see. Mark of the Beast. First column near the bottom. Can you just touch that? It should be a hyperlink, take you right to it. Third one up on the left-hand column. Just touch it and take you right to it. If the hyperlink still work. Oh, good, okay. In Revelation 13, he causeth all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. By the way, all the New Bible versions, including New King James, have changed it to say on the right hand or on the forehead. They change one letter. Does the chip or does the mark go in the hand or on the hand? Big difference, okay? Amen. But even the New King James has changed it to say on, and that's a mistake. It should be in the hand, okay? They've started back in '95, doing microchips in pets and stuff like that. There's a book out, The Mark of the New World Order. It does say the mark is 666. Now, there are several different theories about what that means, okay? There's plenty of microchip. These is 10-year-old technology slides I'm showing here, People getting the Mu chip back in 2001 was invented, the size of a period on a page. That'll hold enough information to trigger the computer to be your identity. Who knows what they've got now? This kid's bragging about how he's going to get a microchip put into his self. They use a needle to inject it, 12-gauge needle. It's got the little antenna in there. And that, like I said, that's 10 years ago. I'm sure it's way down. Sex offenders in Arkansas could be marked and watched with a microchip. I think that'd be a great idea. I think one of them was president for a while. I'm trying to get a sex offender. Why the 666? I think I've got slides here explaining. Let's see. I guess not. One theory is that it's going to be 3 6-digit numbers. Like if you take your Social Security number and your zip code plus 4, that's a total of 18 digits. 666. That's one theory. That's enough to identify every human being on the planet. Social Security number and zip code plus 4. So that's one option. Another option is that the 666 go together and make a pattern. Somehow the Mondex, I think, uses that, or there's several different companies that use that logo. I believe I've got stuff on that. HARP technology. I'm sure there's more research that I'm not aware of been done on that in the last 10 years. Short answer is I don't know what it's going to be. Something involving a number, and has to be put in the hand or in the forehead. And it says a mark, and I have heard that the Hebrew experts will say, oh, that means an etching. Like you you etch a name into a tombstone, or you engrave your name on a bracelet, etched in. And that's how they make these microchips. They're etched in with acid. They lay out the pattern, and it's an acid that etches it in. So the fact that it calls it a mark or an etching would fit perfectly. Good question. Don't have a complete answer. We'll see here soon.
I've been curious about rock layers for a long time, and I'm not convinced on of understanding how all the rock layers are created, even from I think most geologists would say, secular geologists would
Hang
say
on,
that.
brother, would you get out of that one and open up the rock layers. Part 6. Okay,
most would say that I know I just got back from Mammoth Caves, and they would say that Kentucky was under an ocean, and then it went down, and then it went under an ocean. That makes no sense to me. But then I go down there in Mammoth Caves, and there's 50 rock layers, some of them, and they're all the same limestone, I believe. One of them may be 4 foot thick, and then there's a layer above it that's still limestone that's 18 inches thick, and then there's another layer. So why all those different layers? And we've done that experiment where you took a bunch of particles and shook up the water at home, and it forms those layers, but isn't there also like limestone and then a different layer, and then on top of maybe 30 layers above that, there's limestone again? So how did that happen?
There are, like in Yellowstone National Park, there are 27 consecutive layers of coal, separated by different types of rock in between. Well, during the flood in the days of Noah was in the ark for over a year, 13 months. That does not mean every square inch of the earth was underwater for those 13 months. How long would it take to drown everybody? A week. I doubt anybody can tread water for a week, okay? But I have, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, sorting. You see where it says sorting of animals on the right-hand side, 3, 4, 5? Just touch that. It should take you right to it. Why are most reptiles found in the same layer? This may or may not be. Seminar part 6 is where I cover this issue about the flood and what it would do. I think the animals are sorted into certain layers a little bit. And the evolutionists will argue, well, hey, reptiles are all in this layer. That proves the reptiles evolved first. I say, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's other ways to look at this. If there was a flood today, probably not many people would be buried with the buffalo, because people don't hang out with buffalo. They're not going to be found together because they don't hang out together, okay? So clams are usually found at the bottom of the so-called geologic column, which I have, right. Here we go. Sorting of fossils is best explained by a flood. There we go. Birds are usually found in the top layers. I agree. Clams are usually found in the bottom layers. I agree. What does that mean? Well, Maybe they're sorted based upon their habitat. Clams are already at the bottom when the flood starts. They're the first ones buried. Birds are the last ones buried in a flood. They fly around till they run out of gas. Maybe they're sorted based upon intelligence. As far as anybody's been able to figure out, clams are not too smart. Okay? Maybe they're sorted based upon mobility. Clams can't run very fast. So of course they'd be buried first, okay? Or maybe based on body density. Clam shells are heavier than bird feathers. So there may be other reasons. There are many phenomena that take place during floods, okay? There are phenomena called hydrologic sorting, cavitation, hydraulic plucking. So I think if you really get into the study of what the flood could do, it would deposit a layer, and then you have, at the same time Noah's in this ark for a year, you got the earth turning under the moon, which is causing the tides. But now with the tides happening on earth, there's no continents to stop them. The earth is completely covered by water. Today the tide starts to come up and it bangs into something like South America or North America, okay, and it stops. What if there were no continents? There have been studies done on this, and they say if the earth was a solid ball with a liquid surface, the water, 1.5 miles deep around it, the tides would become harmonic very quickly in a flood with no continents to interrupt. And instead of a 6 or 8 foot tidal change, you'd have a 200-foot tidal change. So if you got the earth turning under the moon, and of course the moon moving, which is why your tides are 6 hours and 25 minutes apart instead of 6 hours apart. Who cares? Another rabbit. But the tidal change at 200 feet, the water's bulging up 200 feet, and then the earth turns and that goes back down. Effective to the moon, it keeps the bump right under it. But effective to the people on earth, it looks like the tide's going up and down, and it is to us, okay? Well, if the water's coming up 200 feet, it's coming in from the sides. So there's vertical movement and lateral movement at the same time. This is happening constantly. And shuffling and sorting all those sediments, that would go hundreds of feet deep into the mud, that shuffling and sorting effect, the extra pressure of the water and then the relieving of the pressure. Pressurized, relief, sideways. There's a good video. I had it in my slide here. This happened, Glen Canyon Dam in Arizona, the spillway overflowed, or the pipe handling the overflow couldn't handle it during a big flood time, and it washed out this cave you see here in a matter of minutes before they could shut the water flow off. This was through solid rock. So moving water very quickly becomes liquid sandpaper. It's full of debris and would cut things very rapidly. Hydrologic sorting. You might want to go to Walt Brown's book, In the Beginning. Theodore, do we have any more of those? None? Okay. We sell it at the ministry. It's a great book. In the Beginning, creationscience.com. He has great stuff on this topic. He was a physics professor at the university in Colorado at the Air Force Academy for many years. Great book on hydrologic sorting. What happened in Japan, they had an earthquake, and the groundwater came to the surface. So the whole surface became mud, and buildings sank right in. The earthquake didn't knock the building down. The earthquake brought the water to the surface. It's called liquefaction. All of a sudden, what was solid rock becomes soup from the earthquake, shaking it, bringing the water up. This is all from Walt Brown's book, In the Beginning. Seminar part 6, I have more on that topic, but I think it says in 2 Peter, the scoffers in the last days are willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood and the coming judgment. And I do want to get into the stuff on the coming judgment if we can here, but the flood, I think, can explain all the geology of the earth, you know, the canyons, etc. The layers would form very rapidly. There was an experiment done called Experiments in Stratification. There's a video of a guy at Fort Collins, Colorado. The Navy has a huge place there where they do experiments in stratification, sedimentation, because when they park their submarines in the canyons to hide and spy on people, you know, sometimes the canyons fill in with mud. And so the Navy keeps pretty accurate maps of how deep is this canyon, et cetera, and how much mud washes in. And so they have a big flume, they call it. It's probably from here to the other end of the church, 3 feet wide, 4 feet deep, where they can pump water through this thing, and at the other end it pumps it back up, and there's glass sides on it, and they pour different sediments into the moving water to watch how it sorts it. It's very interesting. As the water's moving down, instead of depositing one layer at a time, it'll deposit 12 layers or 15 layers at a time. All parallel layers, all growing end to end. It's really cool. I should get that video. It was in here, but they got PowerPoint. There's now new version PowerPoint. Didn't take it. But Theodore, we need to get that. He's gone. That experiments in stratification video would answer your question more thoroughly. How you can get multiple layers of the same density separated by other stuff. Okay, long answer to short question. Who's got the mic there? Go ahead.
I heard a rumor that you've predicted the second coming of Jesus Christ in 2028, and I was just wondering if there's any validity to that rumor, or if you could speak about that a little bit.
You would not believe the rumors go around about me. If you get my book...
I don't believe the rumors that go around about you, actually.
Okay.
But I just wanted to ask because it was one of the freshest
let me
ones
answer it
that
here.
I found.
Theodore,
So.
do you have one of my books back there? Any of my What on Earth is About to Happen book? Any left? You can get him to grab one of those. While I was writing that book from prison, I was sending out sections to be posted on various blog sites. I was moved 30 times while I was in prison, and during one of the moves, anyway, this book was written under kind of difficult conditions. Thank you. Somebody wrote me a question, and they said, Kent, what's your best guess on when the Lord's coming back? And so the answer is right here, exactly word for word. I mean, this is it. Page 239. What's your best guess? I said, well, I obviously don't know. It would just be a guess. But based on the following 20 things, if I had to guess, I would guess 2028. Here's why. We know our calendar is off. This is not, 2015 from the birth of Christ. Pope Gregory, the Catholic Pope in 1200-something, made up the current calendar we use, called the Gregorian calendar. They have since discovered he missed it, okay? Jesus was actually born probably in either 4, 5, or 6 BC. But I've often wondered, why do we base our calendar on the birth of Christ? Why not on the resurrection? 33 years later. So, everything in the Bible seems to happen right on the 1,000-year mark. The call of Abraham, 2000 BC. The crowning of King David, 1000 BC. Jesus Christ, year 0. 1000 AD, the Vikings. Okay. It just seems to fit if Jesus was resurrected in 28 AD, which he probably was by our calendar, okay? On our current calendar, it'd be the year 28. The crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection took place. I just think God seems to be working on a big clock. Just like 6 days of creation and a day of rest, I think there's 6,000 years of human history and 1,000 years of millennium. And you can read it. Here's exactly my answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 pages. So before they put any words in my mouth, say, have you read exactly what you're... Don't accuse. I did not make a prediction. I do not know when the Lord's coming. I said, if you had to guess, what would you guess? I said, well, I would guess 2028. That would put the tribulation starting at 2021. I used to believe and teach we're going to be raptured out of here any second before the tribulation. I don't believe that anymore. It's not true. I wish it was, but I cannot believe that anymore. Okay? Thank you, sir.
You addressed theistic evolution briefly earlier. Would you address old earth creationism, and other than the fact that they interpret parts of Genesis much differently, what do you consider the greatest weakness in the old earth creation model?
The idea that God created the earth, but it's billions of years old. The greatest weakness, well, you can look at that 2 different ways, the scientific way or the scriptural way. Scientifically, there are many ways to demonstrate the earth is not billions of years old. For instance, the moon is moving away from us a couple inches a year. Okay, well, that means it used to be closer. If you bring the moon in closer, you create a bunch of problems. The tides get higher, beach erosion goes crazy, and gravity becomes even stronger because of the inverse square law. Half the distance to the moon, it'd be 4 times the gravitational pull. If you bring the moon into 1/3 the distance, you take the 1/3, inverse it, square it, it's 9 times the pull. Who cares? Anyway, people who've done the math on this say the Earth-Moon orbit system is increasing, the distance is increasing, which means it used to be less, and you can only go back about 1.2 billion years, and it collapses. Cannot be orbiting. So there are many scientific reasons why the earth cannot be billions of years old. That is just one of about 50 that I cover on video number 1. Secondly, scripturally, you create some real problems, because during those billions of years, did anything die? Does the theistic evolutionists teach that things died before man got here? Yeah, well, now you got death before sin. The Bible's real clear, death came by man. Romans 5, 1 Corinthians 15, by man came death. In Adam all died. Adam brought death to the planet. So the theistic evolution position, I think, violates all kinds of scripture and violates science. The earth can't be that old. It can't be. Why compromise a perfectly good Bible, which has never been proven wrong, with a dumb theory that's never been proven right? I see no reason for that at all. Thank you, sir.
Your ministry, Creation Science Evangelism, was certainly impacted when you were put in prison. Can you give us a word about how that impacted the ministry and what your plans are for the ministry from here?
My ministry, Creation Science Evangelism, started in 1989, 90, somewhere in there, kind of a soft start, they call it. And when I went to prison, my son, worried they were going to come after him too, and the rest of the family, started a totally new ministry, Creation Today. And his ministry is separate, independent of mine, no connection at all. He lives 2 doors down, you know, and my son, and I helped him get started in the ministry. But no, Creation Science Evangelism is unrelated to anything anybody else is doing. The impact was, you know, total devastation as far as the finances. They took everything, you know. But God has been really good, blessing. You know, I'm amazed. I've been out 4 months yesterday, and it's just he's restoring what the cankerworm hath eaten. You know, so yeah, I'm thrilled that there are many new creation ministries out there. I wish there were thousands more, but mine is just getting going again, and so I appreciate. This is one of the first churches I preached at right here when I first got started 25 years ago. So great place to come back to. Thank you. Okay. Other questions, brother, right there?
Yeah, when you debate an atheist or a scholar or whatnot, what is the most common argument from them, and what is your rebuttal?
The biggest thing they seem to do, and you can watch the debates, we've got them on video, 20 of mine, they love to ridicule, you know, either they'll pick on your degree, where's your degree from? I say, well, Charlie Darwin didn't have a degree. Okay. So ignore my degree. If you don't like it, forget it. Call me Kent, call me Bubba, call me hey you moron, and let's get back to the topic, okay? So the biggest thing they do is when you get them cornered, they deflect it to something else, move to a new topic, okay? The Achilles heel of evolution, well, there are multiple Achilles heels, but there isn't enough time. It's easy to demonstrate. I say, guys, the sun is burning. Step outside and look at it. It's burning. It's losing 5 million tons a second. If you go back in time and add 5 million tons a second, the sun would be heavier. Yeah? Well, it's the sun's weight or mass that causes its gravitational attraction. You cannot say all these planets have been going around this sun while the sun is losing weight. It's not common sense. Not for millions of years. So again, you go back to the scientific evidence for a young universe, a young Earth, and the whole theory collapses. Plus you point out there's no animal has ever produced any other kind of animal. There's just no evidence for evolution at all. So as far as the Achilles heel, man, there are all kinds of, I try to tailor it to whoever I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a biologist, I use biological examples. If it's a geologist, use geology, you know, whatever they claim their specialty is. Tailor it to that. Okay? Who's got the mic? There. Yes, ma'am.
Could you give us in a nutshell why the gap theory does not work?
I couldn't hear that. Why the what?
The gap theory, the gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2.
Okay. Brother, can you go to seminar part 1? Is it part 1? Open up. My first slide in every one is hyperlinks to all the rest of them. I think one of those says gap theory. I have that in a booklet that I wrote called The Gap Theory. It's out there on the table. Also in, it's either seminar 1. Okay, hit page down one time. Is the gap theory. No. Escape that and go to part 2, maybe. This is, like I said, if you ask the questions in the right order, it saves a lot of time. I tried over the many, many years I did my seminar to listen to every question people are asking and include stuff in the seminar. Ah, there we go. Touch gap theory. Okay. The gap theory is the idea that there's a gap of millions of years between the first 2 verses. Genesis 1:1, Genesis 1:2, with a big gap in there. Okay. The gap theory is not true. It's unscientific. It's unscriptural. It's taught in the Schofield Bible. Okay. Taught in many Bibles. They say there's billions of years between those 2 verses. J. Sidlow Baxter wrote, between the first 2 verses of Genesis, there's ample scope for all the geologic eras. He says there was a pre-Adamite rebellion and the judgment of Lucifer took place. Well, there's numerous problems with this. It's not true. Okay? There was no pre-Adamite civilization. Adam was the first man and Eve's the mother of all living. And nothing died till Adam sinned. Romans 5, 1 Corinthians 15, man brought death into the world. And Lucifer didn't fall before the creation. At the end of chapter 1, it's God looked at everything and said it was very good. At the end of day 6, it was all fine. And in Ezekiel 28, it tells us Lucifer was in Eden until he sinned. Well, Eden wasn't even made till day 6. So no, it's simply not true. They'll use the phrase and say the earth was without form and void and say, aha, see, that means the earth was destroyed. No, no, no. Just means unformed, unfilled. He wasn't done yet. There's a book about that called Unformed, Unfilled. Now, Hugh Ross believes it's sort of a gap theory, more of a day-age theory. I debated him once. I don't think he'll do it again. I would be glad to. I wrote a booklet on it called The Gap Theory. I don't know, Theodore is out there. I don't know if we have any with us, but we have that at the ministry. We can get to you quickly if you want. It's just a little $2 booklet, 50 or 60 pages on why the gap theory is unscriptural, unscientific, and unnecessary. Unformed, unfilled just means unformed, unfilled. This house is unformed and it's unfilled. Doesn't mean it's been destroyed. Just not done yet, that's all. Just simply not done. Now, Jeremiah has a passage that uses the same phrase, without form and void, and in that case, it's talking about a city that has been destroyed. And certainly you can have, because it talks about the mountains and the birds and stuff in that passage. Well, they weren't made till, man wasn't made till day 6, so this is not talking about the creation. The Jeremiah passage is not talking anything about the creation. In Exodus 20, in the 10 Commandments, God wrote on a rock with his finger, in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. What does it say? Well, it says he did it all in 6 days, which means there can't be a gap between the first 2 verses. And he blessed the 7th day. I think I don't know how many references to the 7th day. It's quite a few. In 6 days, the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day, he rested. So there are all kinds of scriptural reasons against the gap theory, which I cover on video. That's number 2, right? Seminar 2. Did you open up part 2, didn't you? Yeah, okay, good. Thank you, thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir?
Can you talk about how you changed your view on pre-trib versus post-trib?
I can. Hit escape, and in the top left-hand corner is a folder marked Woe. What on earth slides? W-O-E, right on the face, yeah. When you open that, I think if you go to number 4, hey, Theodore, can you bring me one of those small charts in the small tube? I'll need one of those. Okay. My book I wrote, What on Earth is About to Happen, for heaven's sake, I did for a dissertation for a doctor's degree in prison. I was reading the Bible a lot in prison. You got plenty of time. Huh? Yeah, I got plenty of time to read. Yeah, one of those. Thank you, sir. And Daniel chapter 7 is what really got me started. As I was studying it, it just didn't fit the sequence, because I had been taught all my life. Thank you, sir. Jesus can come any minute, the pre-trib rapture, blah, blah, blah. And it just, so on the back of this poster, which is a couple bucks out there, I've got Daniel chapter 7 columns, Daniel chapter 8, Daniel chapter 9, Daniel 11, Daniel 12, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And as I was putting them all together, I said, we're here for the tribulation. We get raptured out after the tribulation, before the wrath of God falls on the world. I was guilty of confusing tribulation and wrath. They are not the same. And I was guilty of confusing day of Christ and day of the Lord. And they are not the same. Did you find it in the Woe series there? W-O-E, PowerPoint. Left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Verse 3. And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming? Pretty simple. Lord, when's this going to happen, and what's the sign? You see the same thing in Mark and in Luke, where they ask him the question, Lord, when is this going to happen, and what's the sign? Then for the rest of the passage, he describes what's going to happen. Time of tribulation, father against son, son against father, families being torn up, people being persecuted, being killed for their faith. It's all right there. And then at the end in verse 29, Matthew 24:29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. I said, now wait a minute, I've read about that before. There are 10 times in the Bible where it talks about the sun and the moon going dark. 10 references. Isaiah 13:10 is the first one. The last one is Revelation 6:12. All 10 of them, if you want to look them up, are on the chart in this box right here. The sun and the moon go dark. I think we got a bunch of these. We just had a bunch printed there. I don't know, $3 or $4, whatever it cost us to get them color on both sides. So maybe $5 we sell it for. Check with Theodore back there. But the sun and the moon go dark mentioned 10 times. So Jesus said immediately after the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark. And keep reading here, verse number 29. The moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds. So Jesus said after the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark, the angel comes, blows the trumpet, and gathers the elect. I said, how did I miss that for 40 years as a Christian reading my Bible? You see the same thing in Mark and Luke, so that led me to research the history behind this. I found for all of church history, the church taught, we're here for the tribulation. Then in 1830, a 15-year-old Scottish girl had a dream and said, oh, we're taken out before the tribulation. And that dream spread like wildfire through Darby Study Bible and Schofield Study Bible and many others, and the Tim LaHaye Left Behind series. And I wish it was true. I still wish it was true. It's not. If you want to see when we're taken out in the book of Revelation, there are 3 groups of 7 things that happen. There are 7 seals that are broken, and then 7 trumpets, and then 7 vials or bowls of God's wrath poured out, STV. And so you got the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 vials. We're raptured out at the 6th seal, Revelation 6:12. The sun and the moon go dark. The disciples asked him, Lord, when are you coming, and what's the sign? And he told them, after the tribulation, when the sun and the moon go dark. Could not be more clear. So I had to switch my theology about 2009, and then I wrote this book on that topic, what on earth is about to happen. And since then, it has become confirmed 1,000 times more. I am more convinced than ever what the church always taught was correct. And that girl had that dream from too much pizza with peanut butter on it. And it's just not true. Okay, other questions? Who's got the mic there, brother?
Hi, Dr. Hovind. It's good to see you out. There's a lot of debate over when Lucifer was cast out, or if he hasn't been cast out at all yet. So I just wondered, what's your opinion, what's your belief on that?
Okay, on seminar part 2 about the Garden of Eden, I answer that in great detail. We know from Ezekiel 28 that Lucifer was in Eden until iniquity was found in him. Well, Eden wasn't made till day 6. So if he was in Eden for a while as a good guy, he had to fall from heaven after day 6. We also know from Ezekiel 28, twice it says Lucifer was created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth. In the day that thou wast created, it talks about him in Ezekiel 28. Well, we know from Exodus 20 on the 10 Commandments that God said he created everything in 6 days. So Lucifer is a created being. All the angels were created during those 6 days. The only other clue we have that might tie in the book of Job, it says, all the sons of God shouted for joy when they saw the foundations of the earth laid. Well, when was that? The only way I can make it fit is that must be day 3, when the dry land appeared of the creation story. So the angels must have been made on day 1 or 2. And they rejoiced when they saw the foundations laid. Wow, God's going to do something down there. And then after God made Adam and Eve, probably 100 years later, Lucifer said, you know, they really ought to be worshiping me. His heart was lifted up because of his pride and beauty and all those things. So watch my video 2 where I give a long answer to that. But the basic idea is he had to fall somewhere between day 7 and 130 years. Adam was 130 when Seth was born. That's the first date we really have, okay? Before that, Cain and Abel were born, got big enough to get in a fight, and one killed the other. Let's assume they're 20 or 30 when that happened. Just a wild guess. And before that, they were kicked out of the garden. So Adam could have been in the garden for 100 years. Satan saw this fellowship with God and said they ought to be worshiping me, and got jealous or whatever. I don't know what all happened, but his heart was lifted up. And he rebelled against God, got kicked out, came down, deceived Adam and Eve. They sinned. God kicked them out of the garden. Then they had Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel, and then they had Seth. So I see a good 100 years in there. They could have lived in the garden before Lucifer fell. But that would purely be a guess on my part. Okay, brother? Yes, sir.
I had a question about the New World Order because I heard already your seminar on that point.
Wait a minute, slow down now. What's the question?
About the New World Order. How can we stop it? Is there any way we could stop the New World Order from accomplishing itself? And what can we do about this? Does it have to happen, or can we stop it, or retard it at least?
Does the New World Order have to happen? Can we stop it? Is that the question? Okay. In the book of Daniel, in chapter 2, the king saw a dream, a vision of a great image with the head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of brass. It's on here, okay? And if you read Daniel chapter 2, Daniel interprets the dream to the king and says there's going to be all these kingdoms. The Babylonian kingdom, you're first, Nebuchadnezzar, you're the head of gold. After you is going to come another kingdom, and he says it's going to be the Persians, which today is Iran. And sure enough, they conquered Babylon. Then the Greek Empire. Then there's the long legs of iron, which I taught for years, and many people still teach, is the Roman Empire. I don't believe that anymore. I think it's the Ottoman Empire, the Muslims. Because all of this image deals with that country, Babylon. And the Romans never conquered that. There have always been empires around the world. We had the Aztec Empire in South America. That doesn't play into this. There's always been empires. This vision only deals with empires ruling Babylon, which would have to be the Muslims, not the Roman. Okay? Then it says the feet and toes are iron and clay mixed. And it says the final kingdom of 10 kingdoms going to get together, which I think now is probably going to be 10 Muslim kingdoms get together to conquer Israel. That's going to be the final kingdom, the feet and toes of clay and iron. It says the kingdom will be partly strong and partly broken. I have prayed, Lord, I want to be someplace where it's broken. So I don't know if he's going to answer that prayer or not, but so I think there will be places on planet Earth where it will not be as effective or as bad as other places. Okay, let's see. A couple of more here, and we'll take a break, brother. Yes, sir.
So as someone trying to get a small creation ministry off the ground, what advice would you give them on how to do so? How to get into churches, how to get into youth groups to speak, that kind of stuff?
When I started 25 years ago, I had nothing but an old Honda Civic, and we would go buy videotapes at Walmart and unwrap them and put them in the machine and copy. We set the alarm to go up, get up every 2 hours to change tapes to make more copies, okay? There are several things you should do. You should fill your head with information, and there's a ton of good stuff out there to become, savvy on the creation topics. You can see the type of questions that come up. It's the same ones over and over. What about dinosaurs? What about cavemen? What about carbon dating? What about the age of the earth? And stuff that I cover in my seminar. So you fill your head. But more importantly, I think you fill your heart with the love for the Lord. And because some of the creation guys out there speaking on creation, there's no kind way to tell them, but they're boring. They're trying so hard to reach the intellectuals, use all the big words. And after you get all done listening to them, you say, wow, what did he say? That is the last thing I want, okay? I think I can hold my own against those guys in a debate if I need to, but you can see the kids love being around me because I'm 4th grade level. I'm going to stay there, okay? So I would encourage someone who wants to get involved in a creation ministry to quit trying to learn all the big fancy words and impress the scholars. You're not going to impress them anyway. And it wouldn't matter how many degrees you had or what university they're from. If you don't believe evolution, you're stupid in their mind. So forget it. Go after the kids. What we did at Dinosaur Adventureland in my backyard, we had 180-some science lessons that also taught a spiritual lesson. And so many people try to build creation museums, which is in kid language says boring. Okay? A museum, you go in and you look at this, 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 and you go home. Build something where you can push a button and blow something up or burn something down or, do something, Our place was so fun. Everything intentionally low tech, okay? Instead of spending $100 million, spend $50. For instance, we had a tree limb sticking out over the property, huge oak limb about this big. I said, that's perfect for a swing, dead level straight for 30 feet. I said, but instead of putting 2 ropes on there, now the swing can only go one direction. I put a mud flap around there and hung a chain around it and nailed it so it can't slide, 2 nails, and hung a cable from there. But in the cable, there are 2 stainless steel swivels that'll spin around, okay? Swivels, you can buy them $15 at Home Depot. A big, huge, heavy-duty garage door spring. So we got 2 stainless steel swivels, a garage door spring, and then it branches out to a regular swing set seat. So when you put the kid in there and strap them in with a seat belt, because they're going to need it, okay? You push the kid in a circle, and they go in a huge circle from here to that clock, While they're going in a circle, it's also swiveling and bouncing. They get completely disoriented in seconds, okay? And we tell them, if you puke, be sure to puke on the bushes because it makes them have real pretty flowers in the spring. So then, over on this, we got this telephone pole, and we got looks like a Bible made out of wood, screwed up on the plywood, and it says God's Word, We said, now, kid, when you get off of this swing, you're going to be completely lost, okay? What you got to do is go over there and touch that Bible and just hold it for a second. Because believe it or not, it's not moving. You're going to think everything's moving, but it's not. It's fine. It's you. It's up here. That's the problem, okay? So the simple lesson of when you get really confused in life, have something solid to hang on to. God's Word. And they love it. So we took like a barber chair, greased the bearing so it spins so smooth you cannot feel it moving. Okay? The kid sits in there, puts his feet on there, and got the handles, and we're going to get him spinning. But we blindfold him first. And we say, okay, kid, now we want you to tell us what's happening. And so you get him spinning. He says, I'm turning left, I'm turning left, I'm turning left. After about 15 seconds, he says, I'm slowing down, slowing down. Okay, I've stopped. When he hasn't stopped. What's happening in your inner ear, and we got models of the inner ear for the kids to see, you got the cochlea with 3 little tubes in there, each oriented different axis, X, Y, Z axis. Any movement of your body, that little tube, like if I turn this way, that tube, this position horizontal, has fluid inside with little tiny hairs, and because of the inertia, the fluid lags behind, triggers the hair and says, oh, you're turning, or this way, or this way. It's part of your balance mechanism. And when kids are 8 months old learning to walk, you can see it's kind of funny because they haven't interpreted the signals yet, you know. They're kind of walking around and fall over, you know. They're trying to get, what is this signal telling me? Don't, you know, I'm going to fall down. Which is why God built them close to the ground. So, well, the cochlea, though, the fluid in those tubes, after about 15 seconds of movement, the fluid inertia stops. It catches up and it's no longer triggering the brain to say you're moving. So you think you have stopped when you have not. You're still turning, okay? And so a pilot has to learn a special skill to not trust what he feels in his head. He has to trust the external source, the gauges on the plane. Because your head will fool you. A friend of mine took me up in a small plane. He said, Kent, you want to learn to fly? I said, yeah. He taught me the controls, you know. And he said, fly into that cloud. So I flew into the cloud. After about 20 seconds, he said, how are we doing? I said, we're doing fine. He said, look at the gauge. It had us tilted like this and losing 100 feet a minute. I reach up, I tap on the gauge. What's wrong with this thing? He said, no, you need to tap right here. That's fine. This is messed up, okay? Because of that phenomena. After 15 or so seconds, your cochlea no longer sends a signal. You think you have stopped turning when you have not, okay? Simple lesson with a barber chair, right? And all over the wall of this, where we do this, we got pictures of crashed airplanes and instrument gauges on the planes. We say, now kids, there will be times in life when you cannot trust what you feel inside. You have to have an external source, God's Word. Don't trust, I just feel like I should leave my wife. What's the Word say? You have an external source, not an internal source. Simple lesson, simple science lesson, how the cochlea works, and a simple spiritual lesson. I got a friend of mine was going to throw away his dump truck, a big old dump truck. I said, oh, save the front axles. I want those. Real heavy-duty bearings for a merry-go-round. So, like, real heavy-duty, you know. So we built this huge merry-go-round that'll hold 10 kids on this truck axle, and you get them spinning, and then when it stops, we say, now, kid, you got 15 seconds to get out and walk down this 2x6 laying on the ground. Flat 2x6, bright red, 15 feet long, whatever it is, laying on the ground. Of course, they get off and they try to run down and they fall over and everybody laughs at them. We say, now, we're going to try it again. I'm going to get it spinning. When it stops and we start counting down, 15, 14, 13, don't jump up and run down the board. Sit there for 5 seconds till your eyeballs quit wiggling. Then get up and run down the board. Simple lesson in life. Sometimes you'll be completely confused. I don't know what to do. Have a quiet time. Sit there for a while. Then you can get up and run down the board. So all of the things we do are like that. Simple science lessons and spiritual lessons. Purposely low tech. And I am not trying very hard to reach all the intellectual atheists in the world. There's too many kids that want to hear. See, if you had to plow your yard to plant a garden to feed your family, and half your yard was good soil and half was hard rock, don't waste time on the rock until you're sure you got a crop coming. You know, plow what the good soil is first to get the crop coming. If I got time, I'll go work on the rock. If I don't, oh well, you know. So I don't waste a lot of time. The atheists come to me, and I can talk to them, you know, but I go do debates at universities, and I've done 105. I've not led any to the Lord. I'm 0 for 105. But I don't do it to try to win them to the Lord, though I'd like to. I do it to help the students that have to listen to those guys, and that helps. So I would encourage you, don't fall into the trap of trying to get intellectual and reach all these guys who don't want to hear anyway. If you're going to build a Dinosaur Adventureland type thing, do it for kids and make it fun. At the end of the day, at closing time, the kids would cry. Do we have to go home? Yes, kid, we got to eat. Get out of here, please, okay? You know? One family came, they spent 2 days, and it's just in my backyard, 5 acres, okay? We had one family came, they spent 2 days at our place, went 2 days to Disneyland. On the way home, the kids said to the parents, why did we waste 2 days at Disney? It is, I wake up and I get the strange ideas all the time. Like, wow, we could do that. Yeah, that would work. You know, and I write it down. I learned years ago, if you eat a lot of pizza with peanut butter on it, you get cool ideas at 3 in the morning. That's how I got my daughter, but that's another question. But so you, wow, we could do that. I still have thousands of more things I want to do at Dinosaur Adventureland, okay? So first I got to get a bunch of money and a bunch of property, and then we'll work on that, but that's God's problem. So I would encourage you to, I know most of the creationist speakers out there, and it's sad to me that they're trying so hard to reach the people who probably you're not going to reach anyway. Don't waste time on them, okay? We don't need any more of the intellectuals out there reaching the intellectuals. We need people reaching kids like that and that and that, okay? Other questions? We got to quit?
No, the Word says all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and call upon Him with purpose. Why don't you take 10 minutes and tell us how prison changed you?
Okay. We purchased properties in our neighborhood to expand the Dinosaur Adventureland ministry. Ended up with about probably 11 acres, but not all connected yet. So that's why we couldn't connect it all. Just different properties. And we were remodeling the houses and sending students to the hardware store to get, stuff for the properties. New sink, new kitchen cabinets, spending thousands of dollars remodeling 6 or 7 older homes. And so we were dealing in cash for several years, 1999 to 2006 or 2002. And about every 12 days, my wife would go get $9,500 to have on hand for these projects. No problem. Church money, church bank, no problem, okay? We stopped doing that in 2002 and got credit cards. 4 years later, the SWAT team comes rushing in 7:30 in the morning and arrested my wife and I for structuring, which I had never heard of. What? You took your money out of the bank in amounts less than $10,000. Yeah? Okay. Anyway, so they put me in prison for a 10-year sentence. I served almost 9 for structuring. Taking our own money out of our own bank to pay our own bills. One of the dumbest laws ever. Now, the IRS said last year they're not going to use structuring anymore. Well, I'm glad, but that's not enough. Don't just say you're not going to do it. Pay back the damages you already did, okay? And repeal that stupid law. Congress needs to be feeling the heat from everybody. Would you get rid of that stupid structuring law? Just repeal it, period. Because the IRS is using it as a club to beat innocent people. Last year they seized 150 small business bank accounts just because they were dealing in amounts less than $10,000. Only reason. Wow. Dumb law, okay? So I went off to prison, a shock to my system. November 2nd is when I went in. That's 9 years and 4 days ago. Right away, of course, it's emotional roller coaster at first, Then I began soaking my brain in the Bible and reading God why. And half the Bible is written from prison or captivity, or people that experienced one of those. So I will have to say it was a wonderful time in 1,000 ways. God used it greatly. I don't want to do it again, but if you go, it's not the end of the world, okay? I started doing Bible studies. I realized right away I'm in a room with a whole bunch of other hurting men. So we did 4 Bible studies a day, had about 800 men get saved and changed lives. It was incredible. There's a website called Kent's Converts where some people, I can't write to felons, but other people can if you want to get a hold of them. And some of them are con men, and they'll try to talk you out of money, blah, 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 Sorry about that, okay? Just write to them and say, no money, I'll just encourage you. Unless you want to give them some money. Believe me, it gets desperate in there for some of the guys. You don't have anything, nothing. And some of them, as soon as they go to prison, their family abandons them, and everybody just abandons them. So it's pretty sad. It caused me to dig deeper in many things. I did read, I'm a readaholic anyway, and I read a lot of various topics, and caused me to change my theology, which I think was almost worth going to prison to write this book. I wrote, soon after I went, I began writing letters called Dear God. As if I'm, then we changed it to Dear God, knee-mail. I'm on my knees. Why did you let this happen? John the Baptist, writing from prison. God, I was preaching what you told me to preach, and Herod threw me in jail, and they're going to come in tomorrow to cut my head off. Why did you do this? If you haven't asked that question, you will. You'll have times in your life where you wonder, why did this happen to me? So we are working now on getting all those letters, which I wrote, probably 800 of them, I wrote one as if it was the chess piece, the rook, the castle, writing from the sideline to the chess master. Why did you let me get taken out of the game? I went exactly where you told me to go. I did exactly what you told me to do. And they took me out of the game. Why? So the chess master writes back, oh, you did exactly right. Because of your moving there and you're getting taken out, that exposed the queen. I'm going to win this game in 5 moves. I know what I'm doing. And so you'll have things happen in your life, you're going to wonder why. And so this book, What on Earth is About to Happen, was a great blessing to write. But the new series of books is going to be Why on Earth Did God Let This Happen? And we're looking for artists now. I'm meeting with one in Tennessee when I go home, artists who can do artwork to illustrate all those stories. Most of them are 1, 2, 3 page. And I want stories to illustrate. I'm going to put each 6 months in a book. So the first 6 months of 07 will be a book, and the second 6 months will be a new book. Each one will be 150 pages, these books, as we put them out, as we can afford them. I mean, when you publish a book, you got to say, you know, I want 3,000 of these printed. Okay, that'll be $15,000 or $20,000. Okay, well, now what? You know, once you sell them, it's great, but until then, it's like, whew. So I wrote 37 books from prison, and it was, like I said, in many ways a wonderful time. God was so good. It caused my son to grow up and to become independent evangelist, doing a great job. It caused a lot of other people to wake up to the dangers of what's happening in our country. If they can lock up Kent Hovind, they can lock up anybody. I mean, it's scary what's happening in our country. It caused me to see the insanity of our whole prison system. I'm embarrassed that as a Christian for 40 years I did not see that prisons should not exist at all. I was guilty of being a right-wing radical, you know, tough on crime, lock them up and throw away the key. No, in the Bible you get a fine, a beating, or executed. No prisons. God never authorizes prisons one time. The prisons in here are done by the heathen, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, but God never authorizes prison. Either fine them, you steal my sheep, pay back 4 sheep. For certain crimes you get a beating. Other crimes you get executed. And that's merciful. People say they're against the death penalty. What do you want instead? Life sentence. Well, life sentence is a death sentence. Hello. Just takes longer, costs more. Got to feed them now for 40 years. And if someone rapes your daughter, she doesn't need to pay for his groceries for 20 years and worry about him getting out. She needs to watch him get killed, you know, fried, shot, executed, hung, whatever, you know, lethal injection. And then go spit on his grave every week until she heals up emotionally. That's common sense 101. So it changed me in many ways on things like that. I had to switch to post-trib, pre-wrath. I had to switch to I'm against the prison system totally, completely. I would shut it down. I asked 1,000 guys while I was in prison. I said, let me ask you a question. If you were found guilty of a crime and the judge said, you have a choice. Do you want 5 years or 20 lashes? Which would you take? All of them said the 20 lashes. I said, which would be a better deterrent to not do it again? All of them said the 20 lashes. Which would be cheaper for society? 20 lashes. Hire Bubba, get the job done, go home. I said, which would be better for your family? Well, 20 lashes. If I had gotten 20 lashes instead of 5 years, I wouldn't have lost my job, wouldn't have lost my family, wouldn't have lost, you know, on and on and on. The way we're doing it is insane. And it's because judges and lawyers and congressmen are allowed to own stock in the prison system. So the longer they lock them up, the better for their retirement program. The governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour, owns the property where the federal prison is built. He has a 99-year lease, probably $50,000 a month, I'm guessing, leasing thousands of acres to the federal government. They built their prisons there. I was in that prison for a while. His son, Haley Barbour Jr., is the chief federal judge in Jackson, Mississippi. Do you think maybe there's just a little subconscious, you know, desire to keep it full, to keep the payment coming in? I mean, hello, if that's not double dipping, I don't know what is, okay? So shut it down. Just shut the whole system down. I could shut it down in 10 minutes. I'd go through and give the guys an option. You got 3 years left on your sentence. You want 10 lashes right now and go home? come back for the same crime, it's going to be 20 lashes. It'll work. I'm telling you, God says that's how to do it, so I'm assuming he knows what he's talking about, okay? I know with my daddy, lashes worked really good. You can do that again, son? No, Daddy, never, never, never. Okay. All right. We need to take a break. Let's start up again, say at 4, half-hour break. More Q&A, and then I'm not going to be able to get all these sessions in, brother. Global warming. Start up again at 4 o'clock. Kids, if you did not get an airplane and want one, you can only get it after I launch it. We'll be out there launching them in 3 minutes. Come on, let's go.